Let me tell you how I found out my fiancée was cheating, just a few weeks before our wedding. I'm 35 now, and we've been engaged for 3 years, planning to tie the knot that June. We'd known each other since college, though we weren't super close back then. It wasn't until a few years later, while I was working on Wall Street, that we reconnected at a friend's party and started dating. After 2 solid years together, I proposed. At the time, she was working part-time at a thrift shop with a friend and had no real plans to work after we got married. I only popped the question once I felt financially stable enough to support a family. Everything felt right. We were living together, planning our future, and I genuinely believed we were on the same page. But then something changed. She started pulling away, making excuses to avoid intimacy and brushing it off as wedding stress. At first, it sounded believable. Some of my married friends even mentioned their wives had gone through a weird phase right before the wedding, so I tried not to read too much into it. I wasn't able to help much with the wedding planning because I was buried in a major project at work, one that could land me a big promotion. I felt guilty about leaving her to handle everything alone, but she kept telling me it was fine. My best friend, Ryan, also 35, was helping her out a lot, which made me feel better. He and I had been close since school, and he was going to be my best man. I was glad they got along because the last thing I wanted was any awkwardness between them. At the time, Ryan was dealing with a rough breakup and crashing at his place alone, so throwing himself into wedding stuff seemed to be a welcome distraction for him. Meanwhile, I was working crazy hours but still running on pure excitement. Picturing our future kept me going. Then the red flags started. Even though I was working late, she began coming home even later than me. When I asked about it, she'd give these vague answers, saying bridal shopping was taking longer than expected. I wanted to believe her, I really did, but something didn't feel right. One Sunday, I had the whole day set aside just for her. But she said she had a dress fitting she couldn't miss. While she was in the shower, her phone kept buzzing like crazy on the bed. The constant vibration actually woke me up. Out of curiosity, I tried to unlock it, but her phone didn't recognize my face, and the passcode was different. We had shared our passwords since the early days of our relationship. So close to the wedding, it felt odd that she changed hers without telling me. When she saw me holding her phone, she looked startled, just for a second, but quickly collected herself. I asked her straight up why she changed the passcode. She paused and said it was because she wanted to keep the wedding dress photos a surprise. It wasn't a terrible excuse, but it didn't sit right with me. Why not just say that up front instead of sneaking around with it? I couldn't stop thinking about it. The very next day at work, I got a call from her best friend, one of her bridesmaids, saying she couldn't get a hold of her for their dress-fitting appointment. Assuming they had done it the day before, I asked if maybe they were just mixing up the dates. Her friend responded like I was nuts and said the store was closed on Sundays. That hit me hard. So she lied about going to the fitting. I didn't want to confront her without knowing more, so I kept quiet. Then, out of the blue, Ryan called me. That was rare. He usually didn't call unless it was something important. After some small talk, he picked up on my mood and asked what was wrong. I debated telling him, but I ended up spilling the whole thing, how she said she had a dress fitting on Sunday, but her best friend said it was scheduled for Monday. Ryan calmly explained it away. He told me Sunday had been for the dress rehearsal, and Monday was for finalizing the actual wedding dress. It sounded plausible, and since he was neck-deep in all the wedding planning, I let myself believe it. I felt awful for doubting her. Ryan had been in constant contact with her about the wedding, so his reassurance went a long way. For the next few days, things seemed to settle down. She was still acting a little off, but I chalked it up to wedding jitters like she said. Then, one night, I told her I had a late client meeting, which got rescheduled last minute. When I came home early, she wasn't there. So that night, when I came home early and saw she wasn't there, I gave her a call. She picked up and told me she was at home, said she missed me, and asked when I'd be back. I told her I was already in the house, and hung up. She walked through the door about 30 minutes later, acting all casual and carrying a couple bags of groceries. She told me she'd stopped by a cooking class and picked up some stuff on the way back, said it was a surprise for me. I didn't buy it. I asked her not to lie to me, reminded her that honesty was something I couldn't compromise on. She nodded, wrapped her arms around me like everything was fine, but when I leaned in to kiss her, she pulled away and said she had to put the groceries away first. That was the moment I knew something was seriously off. I couldn't ignore it anymore. That night, I lay in bed thinking about all of it, the lies, the weird distance, the new phone passcode. A terrible thought crept in. Was she cheating? It made me feel sick, and yeah, guilty too, just for thinking it. But with the wedding around the corner, I needed to know the truth before making a lifelong commitment. I thought about talking to Ryan, my best friend, but since he was still reeling from his breakup, I didn't want to dump my paranoia on him. Instead, I decided to dig for answers myself. The next day, I checked the footage from the security camera outside our house. Nothing weird there. Just her usual movements, leaving, coming back, unloading groceries. Still, that didn't ease my mind. Since I couldn't get into her phone anymore, I realized my only shot at learning the truth was to follow her. So the next morning, I pretended to head to work, but instead, I parked a couple blocks away and waited. Sure enough, she left around her usual time, and I followed, keeping a good distance between us. She stopped by the thrift store, then swung by a florist, and finally came home. Nothing sketchy. But my gut wouldn't let it go. I decided to follow her again the next day. That night, everything seemed normal. She acted just like she had the past few days, calm, collected, nothing overly affectionate. And again, the next day, her behavior didn't change. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling. It was like a quiet alarm in my head I just couldn't turn off. By the third morning, I was deep in my thoughts when Ryan called. He wanted to talk about planning my bachelor party. I told him I was cool with whatever he came up with. But as we talked, I could hear music in the background, really loud, old Spanish songs. Something about it stuck with me. Right then, I had to take a work call, so I hung up without asking where he was. And I figured there wasn't much point in trailing my fiancée again, since she'd just go to the same places. Later that day, I got a call from the jeweler making our wedding bands. He said my fiancée still hadn't sent in her ring size and asked if I could check in with her. So I called her. And guess what? Same old Spanish music blaring in the background. I asked her where she was, and she said she was with her best friend, definitely not Ryan. I passed along the jeweler's message, and she said she'd stop by the store later. When I ended the call, I just sat there for a second. That music. Twice in one day. Once with Ryan, once with her. Coincidence? Maybe. But it didn't feel like it. I called Ryan back and asked what he was up to. He said he was in a cafe, meeting with a client. But then I heard something faint in the background, a laugh. Her laugh. High-pitched, unmistakable, and then suddenly it cut off. Ryan quickly said he had to go and hung up. Why lie? If they were together for wedding stuff, they didn't need to hide it. So why were they pretending they weren't with each other? Deep down, I already knew. I just didn't want to believe it yet. I still didn't confront either of them. I wanted proof, clear, undeniable proof. So after work, instead of heading straight home, I drove to Ryan's place. His car wasn't there. I made a note of the time, 6 p.m., and drove home. It took me exactly 23 minutes. The same time she'd said it took to get back from her supposed cooking class. Now my suspicions weren't just creeping in, they were clawing at my chest. When I got home, she wasn't back yet. I took a shower, tried to calm down, but the thoughts were spinning out of control. I was about to marry this woman, and there was a real chance she was cheating on me, with my best friend. Still, I held on to that tiny thread of hope that maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. The next day, I followed her again. She went to the thrift store as usual. I sat in my car ready to give up when suddenly Ryan walked in. I froze. 45 minutes later, he came back out. I didn't move. It still wasn't definitive proof. Maybe he was just helping her with something for the wedding. Maybe. But deep down, I felt the truth tightening around my throat. The next morning, during breakfast, I remembered I'd left a file upstairs. I went to grab it and passed by the bedroom. She had just stepped out of the shower and was getting dressed. And that's when I saw it. A hickey, clear as day, right on her shoulder blade. That hickey? Yeah, I hadn't put that there. We hadn't been intimate in over a month. I just stopped and stared at it. She looked startled, probably caught off guard that I noticed. I reached out and traced my finger lightly over it. She actually shivered. It was creepy. I didn't even need to say anything. She jumped straight into damage control. Told me it was an insect bite from the day before. I just stared at her, told her it didn't look like a bite from any bug I've ever seen. She got nervous. Her voice started shaking, and she kept spinning more lies. I didn't say a word. I just nodded and left for work, but in my head, I wasn't going to rest until I had solid proof. As soon as I got into my car, I pulled up the CCTV footage from the day before. Just like I expected, she wasn't wearing anything that exposed her shoulder. She had on a dress that covered everything, so no way was that bite visible unless someone was really close. Like bedroom level close. I felt sick. Still, I followed her that day. She didn't go anywhere unusual, just a thrift store again. But then, she headed to Ryan's place. That's when my heart dropped. I watched him come out and greet her with a hug, too comfortable, too casual. Then they both went inside and stayed there. For hours. I sat in my car, gripping the wheel. I could walk away now and pretend it was all in my head, or I could face the truth. I chose truth. I had the spare key to Ryan's place. He had one to mine too, back when I still thought he was my brother from another mother. I let myself in quietly. Her purse was sitting right there on the couch. I followed the sound of voices. Their voices. I crept down the hallway, taking slow, quiet steps until I reached the bedroom. She was laughing, telling him how close I'd come to discovering them because of the hickey. Saying they had to be more careful next time. Then came the moans. I pushed the door open slowly. And there they were, my fiancé and my best friend, tangled up in bed naked. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just took out my phone and snapped a photo. Then I shut the door and walked back to the living room. Seconds later, I heard the bedroom door creak open. She came out laughing, still wearing Ryan's shirt, and froze when she saw me standing there. Her face strained of color. The smile died instantly. Ryan stepped out behind her and froze too. I walked up to him and decked him right in the jaw. Then I looked at her. I never want to see your face again, I said, my voice like ice. I turned and stormed out of that house. I didn't even make it to the office. I drove straight home and just sat in the car, hollowed out by the weight of what I'd just seen. But I wasn't alone for long. She pulled into the driveway just as I was getting out. She ran after me, crying, begging me to listen. I should have thrown her out. But instead I let her speak. Maybe I just wanted to hear how she tried to spin it. She started rambling, saying everything started when she was planning the wedding. Ryan had been a mess after his breakup, and she was just trying to be there for him. One thing led to another, she said. They kissed. It was just helping him move on. I couldn't believe the nerve of her. You helped him move on by sleeping with him? I snapped. She winced but kept begging for forgiveness, saying it was just a mistake, that we had our whole future ahead of us. The more she talked, the angrier I got. She wanted me to just let it go. Like it was nothing. But she broke something sacred. And for what? A fling with a guy who was supposed to be like a brother to me? And then it hit me. I had 5 days until the wedding. I could call it all off. Tell everyone. Save face. Walk away. Or I could make sure she, and Ryan, felt the weight of what they did. So I played along. I let her plead and cry and tell me how everything would be perfect from now on. I let her believe she had a shot. She told me not to cancel anything. To let loose at the bachelor party. That it was a once-in-a-lifetime moment, and all our guests were already flying in. She thought I'd forgiven her. She thought we were back on track. She was dead wrong. She was about to find out exactly what I do to people who betray me. And then, the bachelor party day arrived. The night of my bachelor party, Ryan showed up at my place instead of meeting me at the club like we'd planned. As soon as he walked in, he launched into this long apology, said he never meant to screw things up between me and my fiancée. Said it was a mistake. That he didn't know how it got that far. I nodded like I was forgiving him. Told him it was okay. That everyone makes mistakes. That I was willing to give both of them another chance. I was lying through my teeth. We headed to the venue together. My other friends were already there, having drinks, joking around. None of them had any idea what was really going on behind my smile. I acted like I was having the time of my life, laughing, dancing, soaking up the attention like nothing was wrong. But inside, I was seething. Meanwhile, my fiancée was staying at her parents' place until the wedding. Honestly, that was a blessing. I didn't want to see her face. Every time I thought about her, all I could picture was her with Ryan. Lying. Sneaking around. Whispering God knows what into his ear. I kept thinking back to that call he made, the one where he covered for her dress fitting. I knew she was lying. Her best friend had already told me the store was closed that day. And he still lied to my face, knowing I'd put the pieces together eventually. That's when I knew exactly how this was going to end. Not with a quiet breakup. Not with whispered excuses behind closed doors. No. I wanted everyone to know what they had done. I planned to blow everything up at the rehearsal dinner. She was coming with her parents, and I showed up early to the restaurant. Pulled a staff member aside and asked if they could help me set up a little surprise. I brought my phone and arranged to have a projector ready. As our families and close friends started arriving, I kept it cool. Smiled. Chatted. Told the officiant to show up a little late. My fiancée started getting anxious when he didn't show on time. I told her to relax, that everything was fine. Then I stood up and said, "While we wait for the officiant, I have something I'd like to share." Someone joked that I should save my toast for later. I smiled and said, "No, I want to do it now." I began by talking about how I met her, how perfect everything had felt. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and this warm little smile, thinking I was about to give some romantic speech. She had no idea what was coming. I said how grateful I was for all the things she'd done for me. How thoughtful she always was. How she put others first. So thoughtful, I said, that she even started sleeping with my best friend to help him get over his breakup. Silence. Dead silence. Everyone froze. Her smile disappeared instantly. Her body stiffened like someone had pulled the rug out from under her. Then I turned toward Ryan. "We've been best friends since school," I said. "I still remember the time we jumped that guy in high school just because he tried hitting on your girlfriend." I looked him right in the eye. "You were like a brother to me." Then I pulled out my phone and projected the photo I took, of them, naked in bed together. Gasps. Hands over mouths. Murmurs rippling through the room. My fiancée stared at the floor. Wouldn't even look at me. I walked up to her, calm as ever, and said, "Don't ever show your face to me again. Give me the ring back," I added. I didn't even want it, I just didn't want her keeping a symbol of our commitment. Not after what she did. Her hands trembled as she handed it to me. I told her I'd already called movers to take care of her stuff. Warned her not to set foot on my property again. People were whispering, eyes wide, no one sure what to say. Then I thanked everyone for coming. "The wedding's off," I said. "Obviously." Before walking out, I turned to her one last time. "You'll be getting the bill for everything. The vendors can contact you directly." She looked stunned, like she hadn't even considered the financial side of the fallout. I walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't wait for her or Ryan to chase me. They didn't. The next day, I made sure every single piece of her belongings was packed up and gone. I left nothing that would give her an excuse to come back. The vendors? I gave them her number. I blocked her everywhere: phone, email, social media. Shut it all down. I didn't need more lies. I didn't need the drama. Word spread fast. Everyone knew what happened. I heard from a mutual friend that she couldn't even look anyone in the eye. That she packed up and went out of state to live with some cousins. Ryan never contacted me again. He sent my spare house key back through someone else. Coward. They both got what they deserved. I'd been loyal. I'd loved her. I'd been a good friend. And they spit in my face. Now I'm in therapy. Trying to rebuild. Trying to move on with my life. It's been 6 months since that night. It's been almost a year since I called off the wedding. A mutual friend told me that about 2 months after everything blew up, my ex-fiancé and Ryan, the guy she cheated with, started dating. At first, they were all smiles, playing house like nothing had happened. But it didn't last long. Word got around. People started talking. Friends took sides. Their relationship became the center of gossip and awkward silences. And then, not too surprisingly, Ryan cheated on her, with a coworker. She found out a few months later and ended things with him. I figured I'd share that since I've already laid out everything else. Now it's been 2 years since I found out about the affair. After she and Ryan split, she actually tried to contact me. Even though I had her blocked on everything, she found a way to get to me, at a party of all places. She said since everything started at a party, it made sense to ask for forgiveness there. I laughed. Told her that even if she were the last woman on earth, I wouldn't take her back. She went pale and rushed out without saying another word. She hasn't tried to reach out since. Ryan also tried to reconnect after his breakup. Said he waited because he wanted to give me space, and that our friendship meant more to him than any woman ever could. I asked him why then did he date my ex-fiancée right after the wedding was called off. Especially when he knew how much that would hurt me. He looked genuinely shocked, like he didn't realize I knew. I laughed again. Told him I knew all along, and just didn't care anymore. Then I told him straight, I don't want friends like him in my life. Therapy helped me reach that point. Helped me unpack all the pain and anger and finally stop carrying the weight of other people's betrayals. It doesn't cut as deep anymore. These days, I'm doing better. I got that promotion I'd been grinding for, and I'm surrounded by people who actually support and care about me. Good friends. A close-knit family. Eventually, I sold the house. Couldn't stand being in that space anymore. It was haunted by memories of what we were supposed to be. With the help of friends and family, I moved into a new place. Felt like turning the page on a new chapter. And yeah, I'm seeing someone now. A woman I work with. She knows everything. The whole messy story. And she's been nothing but kind and patient. We're taking it slow, and honestly, it feels good. Trusting someone again isn't easy, but I'm trying. Back when it all happened, I swore I'd never date again. Thought love just wasn't worth it. But here I am, proving myself wrong. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's not to give people blind trust. Even those closest to you can lie, cheat, and break you. My ex didn't want marriage out of love, she wanted comfort, security. She knew I'd take care of her, and that's why she pushed so hard for the wedding. That's also why she tried to come back after Ryan left her. Which brings me to now, my new life. After just over a year of marriage to the woman I thought was my fresh start, something unexpected happened. One night she asked me if I'd ever consider being with someone else, if I had a chance. I said no. I was content with her. Satisfied. But her reaction surprised me. She looked annoyed. Then she admitted she would be with someone else, specifically, a colleague she found attractive. I asked her if anything had already happened. She swore it hadn't. Said it was just physical attraction. No emotions. Still, that didn't stop her from suggestingly open our marriage. She told me she already sent him explicit photos. They'd been physically close. Now, she wanted my permission to meet him again, under certain rules, just to explore that attraction once. I was stunned. This wasn't the woman I thought I'd married. She'd never been flirty, never even hinted at wanting something like this. She insisted it was a one-time opportunity, just about lust. She even said she'd regret not going through with it. That I should take advantage too. Told me she could set me up with someone through her friends. I didn't know what to say. I told her I needed time to think. Last night, I sat her down and had the talk. I started by telling her. I told her I wasn't going to use the so-called free pass. She didn't take it well, got upset, said I was being immature and petty. Thought I was trying to make some kind of point, like I was holier than thou, too good to need anyone else. I explained calmly that it had nothing to do with proving anything. I just loved her, emotionally and physically, and I wasn't interested in being with someone else. She said that wasn't fair. That because I'd had more experience than her before we got married, she deserved the chance to catch up. She kept pushing the idea that it was only fair she got the same freedom I once had. That's when I started asking about her coworker. I wanted to know how she knew so much about him, how this, just physical, attraction had gotten so deep so fast. After 30 frustrating minutes of dodging and stammering, she finally admitted they'd already had some physical contact. Nothing serious, according to her, but they were planning to go further depending on how our conversation went. She said she felt terrible about it. Said she didn't want to hurt me. But since I didn't take my free pass, I told her I needed to meet this guy in person first. She agreed. Said she'd bring him over sometime soon. To soften things, she tried to spin it into some sort of fantasy. Said I might even enjoy it, reminded me of role-play we'd done in the past. She even offered to film it for me. I told her I wouldn't know how I felt until it actually happened. If I ended up just feeling hurt and not turned on, it would be over. She nodded. Said she understood. That night, we had amazing intimacy, probably the best in months. The next morning, she was incredibly sweet, cooked me breakfast, gave me a massage. It almost felt like she was trying to hold on. So we set up a rule. If I didn't feel okay after their first encounter, she'd end it. If she couldn't, I told her I'd go to counseling and prepare to walk away. That weekend, she met up with him. She told me afterward they'd been intimate. I didn't press for all the details. I'd already accepted more than I ever thought I would. But when I tried to talk to her about boundaries, about respect, she got defensive. Said I had no right to tell her what two consenting adults could or couldn't do in bed. That stung. I thought we were still a team. Still a couple. Later, I asked if I could join them next time. Not because I really wanted to, more to see how far this had gone emotionally. She said she'd ask him. Turns out, he wasn't comfortable with that. So, I wasn't invited. I started wondering, do open relationships usually not include any kind of boundary setting? Or had I just lost all control? But the real breaking point came last weekend. She left Saturday morning, said she was seeing him. Before she went, she asked me to take photos of her for him. Like I was some assistant or sidekick. She didn't even kiss me goodbye. She promised she'd be back that night. She wasn't. The next morning, she texted me saying she ended up spending the night at his place. No warning. No discussion. Then she dropped the real bomb. They'd invited one of his friends over that night, and things happened. She just casually told me. Like it was a fun story, not a complete betrayal of our agreement. I was stunned. Hurt. Furious. When I showed any emotion, she laughed. Called me unmanly for reacting. Told me to grow up. That's when I knew she didn't love me anymore. Or at the very least, she didn't respect me. Before this guy, she was the most affectionate, caring person I'd ever known. I don't know what he awakened in her, but it flipped some switch, and I barely recognized the woman in front of me. I told her that night, if she couldn't respect boundaries, I was done. She laughed again. So I grabbed my bags, booked a nearby hotel, and left. I told my brother everything. He invited me to stay with him, no questions asked. I took him up on it. She texted me that night, suddenly sad and confused, wondering why I left. The next day, I went back to the house with my brother. I wanted to grab more of my things and avoid losing my temper. She was there when we arrived, waiting, trying to talk. When I saw her at the house that day, I had nothing left to say. I just tried to move past her, but she grabbed me, tried to hold on like nothing had happened. My brother had to step in. He pulled her off me and told her flat out that he'd call the cops if she didn't back off. That must have got through to her, because she finally left. And I haven't heard from her since. The truth is, this whole situation broke me. I didn't want any of this, any open marriage, any arrangement. I went along with it because I thought it would make her happy. I convinced myself maybe I could accept it, maybe I could be okay with it, just to keep her. But the whole time, I was drowning. Before we got married, she was incredible. Kind, sweet, thoughtful. I never saw any red flags, no signs she was capable of becoming this manipulative or emotionally cruel. It's like she became someone else overnight. Now I don't even recognize her, or myself. This has changed how I see relationships, how I see love, and honestly, how I see myself. I used to think I was a strong, steady person. But after everything, I feel shattered. I'm just trying to piece myself back together. I don't know how to move forward. I don't know how to talk to people about this, our families, our friends. I don't even know how to talk to her anymore. I'm just trying to survive this thing. Then, after a lot of thinking and some long talks with my brother, I made a decision. I left her. Last week, I packed up and went to stay with my brother. It was the clearest my mind had been in months. I knew going back to my house would eventually need to happen, if for no other reason than to prove to myself that I could. So the day I planned to file for divorce, I went back. My brother came with me. She was there, of course. Waiting. Tried to talk to me again. Grabbed at me. I ignored her. Treated her like she didn't exist. But she got physical, started beating on my chest, screaming. I finally pushed her away, just enough to get space. My brother stepped in again and warned her, keep it up, and he'd call the police. She backed down and left. That night, she didn't say a word. But the next day, she texted me a picture. It was her. And the coworker. A stupid, happy-looking selfie. No message, no explanation. I showed it to my brother, and he just shook his head. Said she had to be seriously messed up to do something like that. I agreed. A few days later, I had my first meeting with a divorce attorney. It went well. He told me everything I needed to prepare for, the paperwork, the possible challenges. I showed him the pictures, the messages, the videos. He said they'd be helpful as evidence. The only concern was that she might try to argue I had agreed to everything, even though it had all been under pressure and manipulation. I spent the weekend laying low, talking more with my lawyer, and staying close to my brother. On Sunday, we sat down with my parents to tell them what was going on. They were shocked. My mom could barely believe it at first. But my brother backed me up, told them everything. And eventually, they believed me. They saw how much I had tried. How hard I had worked to save something that wasn't worth saving. They hugged me before I left. We were all crying. I didn't want this. None of this. But they understood that, and that meant the world to me. The next big step was telling her parents. I wrestled with that decision for a while. I didn't know if it was my place, but I realized if I didn't, she'd probably fill their heads with lies about me. So I went. Alone. We sat around awkwardly for a while. Just small talk. Then finally, I told them the truth. Everything. Their faces said it all. They looked disgusted, not at me, but at what their daughter had done. They said they'd never seen this side of her before. They didn't blame me. In fact, they thanked me for trying as hard as I did. Said they knew I loved her. Knew how badly I wanted to make things work. Before I left, they hugged me too. All of us in tears again. They knew this divorce wasn't out of spite. It was survival. That weekend I stayed at home with my brother. Tried to breathe. Tried to think. Then, late Saturday night, I got a text from her. She said she was coming over. I told her not to. That she wasn't welcome right now. But, as usual, she ignored me. 20 minutes later, she was at the door. I felt cornered. Like I didn't have a choice but to finally talk to her. She said her parents had spoken to her, and they were furious. Said divorce had been brought up. She was upset they even mentioned it. I hadn't even told her yet that I was going through with it. But in that moment, looking at her, I realized she already knew. And for once, she was scared. I hadn't planned on telling her in person. Honestly, I was going to let the divorce papers speak for me, let the lawyers handle everything. But when she showed up that night, it all came out. She was furious. Called me childish. Said a real man wouldn't go behind her back and talk to her parents before telling her. I kept calm. Told her the truth, that because of her manipulative behavior, I didn't feel safe talking to her directly. I went to her parents first to stop her from twisting the story, from making me the villain. She just kept asking me if it was true, if I was really filing for divorce. I told her yes. I was. That's when she broke down. Full-on sobbing. Couldn't get a word out for a good 15 minutes. When she finally calmed down a little, she looked at me with these glassy eyes and asked, "Why are you doing this? Why didn't you tell me first?" And I told her. I laid it all out. Because she manipulated me. Because she made me feel invisible. Because she humiliated me, parading around with her coworker like I didn't matter. Because she promised to stop and didn't. Because I just couldn't do it anymore. After that, she didn't argue. She just left. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of texts and missed calls. Voicemails, long messages, her crying, apologizing, telling me she still loved me. That she missed me. That she wanted to fix everything. It destroyed me. Hearing her voice like that, it took me right back to the beginning. When I loved her without question. When I thought we were unbreakable. I cried. Harder than I had in years. And I almost answered her. Almost. But I didn't. I kept reminding myself of the last few weeks. Of how she treated me. Of the lies. The sneaking around. The laughing in my face when I told her I was hurting. Since she left that night, her friends have started messaging me too. Telling me I'm a monster. That I should have taken her back. That going to her parents was wrong, and now they're all she had left. Some of them cussed me out. One even threatened me. It's been chaos. I didn't expect any of this, especially not from people who barely knew what actually went down. And through it all, her parents have stayed on my side. They were shocked and disappointed, yeah, but they understood. They saw how much I loved her, and how much I tried. Do I feel bad for going to them first? A little. But honestly, I'm glad I did. Because at least they know the truth now. I haven't heard from her since that last wave of texts. I don't know where she's staying, probably with the coworker or one of the friends who's been defending her. What surprises me most is myself. That I didn't cave. That I didn't go back. Because for so long, I let her twist me up and make me question everything. But not this time. This time, I stood my ground. And this weekend showed me something I really needed to see. I can walk away. I can choose myself. And I will.